What's happening, family? It's me. Hey, it's CY, Mr. 8020, Mr. Mindset U. We're back with another season of the Genesis podcast, The Renaissance of Manhood. And man, I'm super excited today, man, because let me tell you something about this brother here, man. Met this brother doing a podcast for somebody else. I came in and sat down with them brothers, and we just immediately had an affinity and a kinship. One, because he a September baby, I'm a September baby. And we just have so many things aligned. Like we got about the same number of kids. we got a lot in common, right? And as I've watched this brother and his work is high quality. He's shot a lot of things that you've seen me post and put out. And as I began to listen to him, I'm like, man, this dude got something to say. He is powerful in his own right. And I've been watching his Dear Son podcast and everything that he's doing that's been growing and just watching his growth and maturation. And I just want to sit down and have a conversation with him. So I'm going to introduce to you, I consider my brother, my friend. He's my producer, man. He's just an overall amazing brother, man. Introduction to him. I call him D Johns. What's going on, D Johns?
I'm good, brother. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great, man. First of all, thank you for producing and sitting behind the mic. You know what I'm saying? Doing it all, man. And I appreciate you, you know, just the relationship we built over the course of time. We don't talk every day. We don't talk every week. But it's like we pick up where we never left off, man.
Talk enough.
Exactly.
We talk enough for me, man. I appreciate the invite and definitely want to give you your flowers too, man. As you said, it was an immediate connection when we sat down and just watching what you're doing with Mindset U, the conference that you had a couple months ago, maybe 3 months ago now. Yeah. Powerful. I was behind the camera, but I was still impacted. So wow. I know next time I'm going to be in a different capacity, but it's definitely something that any man that's breathing can benefit from. So I'm proud of you, man. You said you was going to do it. You did it. And stuff like that encourages me. I like to keep those people around because I have a lot of things that I finally wrote down, but I haven't executed. And right. I see people next to me executing and kind of gives me that spark. So salute to you, my brother.
Oh, man. Thank you, man. Appreciate you for, man, I was showing people the video playbacks. They're like, man, this is some high quality stuff. I said, yeah, this is my boy D Johns. You know, he did that. But yeah, I definitely don't want you behind the camera this time. I see you actually, I got an idea. I'm not going to give everybody the idea, but I see you doing some things with your dear son as well. For sure. Got some other brothers that you guys are in a similar space. So we want to bring you guys in. And man, you know, my motto always has been, I'm going to date my age, but I always say we got to form like Voltron.
Indeed.
You know, that
better
means,
together, man.
Exactly. There's no competition, all collaboration. So, man, yeah, I appreciate you for that, man. I thank you for the flowers, man. And honestly, man, that conference was scary for me. I did that with no job. I was in the midst of a 19-year desert experience, isolation experience that, you know, it's like God had me hid. And I was making connections with like directors, VP of HRs and going through processes and nobody would call me back. Yeah. And I was supposed to do it in 24. I was like, man, I don't nobody want to come to no conference I'm doing. Yeah. Right, selling myself short. And not really selling myself short, but I'm selling the God in me short. And I think oftentimes we view God like we view ourselves.
Our limitations are his.
Exactly. And it don't even work like that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, he's just saying, just you step out and I'll do the rest. And so I moved out my way. He said, I want you to put this flyer out there. Yeah. Now, it wasn't the most high quality flyer.
Once it's out there, you got to do it, though.
Exactly. He's like, now you're accountable to it. And even up to probably a month before the conference, like I was like at the crossroads where I had put the date out there and I got to pull the trigger on the venue. Finances wasn't there. Yeah. And, you know, God, he parted the Red Sea for me. That's all I'm going to say. And so the last day possible to get the venue and keep the date is when I was able to secure the location.
That's how it works sometimes.
Yeah. So, man, yeah, that was a scary experience. But yeah, man, I've seen like the intentionality with you, with your podcast. I've seen like how you just continue to elevate and grow. And I'm like, my man is on a mission. And oftentimes I want to ask you about that. We're gonna jump into some other discussions. One of the discussions I want to talk about is like the maturation process, even as a man, a husband, a father, around like our emotional intelligence. how you've navigated that, because I see it in the way that you respond in your podcast and when you're talking to people. It just exudes like emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and being able to like manage yourself. So that's one of the things I want to get into. But back to the intentionality with the podcast, like what's been your process, and how have you got up every day and said, I'm going to do something to push me towards this goal and push me to where I want to go and who I want to become? Because I see the growth, I see the channel growing, I see the views growing, I see everything, man.
But the origin of the podcast is really reflecting a time of reflection on my relationship with my son.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with my dad in the house. Great father, always got a caveat saying that, but he had his way. You know what I'm saying? It was his way, it was his way.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't always care for his way in the house. And I really didn't want him to parent me the way he did. So I created a space, and I always take accountability for it. As I became of age, I started putting more space between me and him, like listening to him less, not being in the same place as him.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of shaped my early adulthood, going through life without a father. I shouldn't say without a father, but without seeking counsel from a wise father.
Oh, okay.
And just going out there and making a bunch of mistakes. So as I had a son, you know, my oldest son is child 3 of 5 now. And, you know, he was coming into that 11 and 12 age, and I'm managing him like I wanted my dad to manage me, kind of hands off.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not who my son is. My son wanted the conversations. He wanted to be in the same room. He wanted me to come in there and jump on the games with him. But in my mind, I'm like, you know, he thinking that he wanted that same distance that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Realizing that he didn't want it, and I also realized I hadn't built up the tools or the emotional wherewithal to be that to him. The podcast became my accountability partner.
Oh, wow.
So like God really put it on my heart in 2020. I put up the trailer in 2020, September. Didn't do anything for a year. September 2021, first episode went out. Most difficult episode I've ever done. Because it was just me at first.
Right.
And, you know, kind of articulating where I was in life, where I thought I failed, and what the challenges were that I intended to work through this podcast. Probably took me about 4 hours to get that 30 minutes together.
Oh, wow.
And once I did that, like you said, once you put it out, it's out.
Mm-hmm.
So the type of friends that I have, the type of brothers that I have, they're not going to let me put something out and run from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew once it was out, I had to live with it. So it's been good for accountability. My son comes on the platform every now and then. I allow him to grade me. Like, what is our relationship now? Latest grade was about a B plus.
Right.
B plus, right? We got some room to work. But it's building the reps of becoming that person that I need to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a little bit intimidating to do that in public, but that's what the show is about. So every day I get an experience as a father. Like I said, I have 5 kids now. Today they are 21, 19, 17, 11, and 10, and we're going into birthday season. My son will be 18 in a couple weeks. Then the birthdays just roll through the rest of the year. And now I also have a granddaughter who's coming up on 11 months. In a few days, she'll be 11 months. So my perspective has changed. Having children of those ages, there's a duality there in parenting adults and then parenting adolescent children.
Yeah.
And now parenting an adult that has a baby that lives in a house, because that's the other piece of it.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be in a 3-generation house, but
oh, wow.
I'm not in a rush to get anybody out. So my why every day is because there's a reason every day. Every day I'm learning something. If I'm not learning something, I fail that day. But it's typically a revelation, whether it's big or small, daily, that I try to bring to the platform in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful, man. That 3-generation home, that is something interesting, and we saw it in previous generations, right? Yeah. I think society has kind of pushed us to get away from it for some reason, particularly in our culture. And I know it's a fine line to walk, right? You want to prepare your children for a life where they're not totally dependent on you, but also you don't want to just push them out there because, oh, you 18, you got to go. You know, that's typically how we do in our culture.
That's the fallacy.
Whereas the other ones will be like, you know, stay here, get yourself together, stack up your money. And so, or you know, give me a small amount of rent.
Yeah.
We say that up. So when you walk away from here, you walking away with a down payment for a house.
Correct.
Or you walking away with a fully furnished apartment, whatever you be, right? And I think that's one thing that is powerful that you said, is that sometimes we got to refine what we've been doing. We got to reconstruct and adjust and figure out what works for us, right? And not just go with what we were taught. Cause there's a lot of things that I was taught that now I'm saying, that don't work. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even like it myself, but that's what I knew. So that's what I did. So, let me ask you this, cause I have, the gamut of kids too, right? My oldest actually be 30 coming up this year. No, 29. She gets mad at me because I forget her age. And then my youngest is 11. Gotcha. So I got that gamut as well. So in my oldest two, they're 20, 29, and the boys will be 25 in August. One's in Japan in the Air Force. One lives with me, and we're working through helping him find himself and find his way in life.
It's a process.
But they say, "Oh, the younger ones, they got it made. You different, right?" Do you get that from your kids?
I do, but the difference is not as dramatic as like my parents versus my parents being grandparents. Like that I don't know who they are. I think the difference is my older children got a version of me, but they're still seeing me grow through it. Like I grew with them, and then the younger two try to play up, like they're trying to catch up in maturity and try to be in the same conversations, and that has pros and cons. Sometimes you got to remind them, mind your age, mind your tone, and things like that. But they I think through conversations here have allowed me, facilitated me being more open with them in general. So we had more conversations than I had with my parents, and that's not a knock on them. It's just that wasn't the way to kind of talk openly. And openly, to be clear, openly doesn't mean disrespectful. Right. Openly means you can address things in a way, in a form, in the house that need to be addressed. So they get more of that. The younger kids got a less angrier version of me, quite honestly. Yeah. Okay. Same here. Rah. Yeah. Older. Get it done. Yeah. I'm gonna fuss. I'm gonna yell. Now it's kind of a discussion and an explanation as to why. So I understand it. And that actually segues into the question I have for you. So, as you started, you've grown as a man. Obviously, you've grown as a husband. You've grown as a father. Like, what was your understanding of, emotional intelligence? As they say, that's the buzzword, but it's something that is really legitimate, right? Yeah. Emotional intelligence. When were you able to kind of take self-stock of yourself and say, hey, you know what? These things aren't working. I'm not managing myself properly. I'm not aware of what forces me to respond this way to my children, or respond this way to my wife, or respond this way to a situation that might not be in the best interest of our relationship, right? Yeah. When were you able to get to that point and say, you know what, there's a different approach. I'm looking at myself. I'm going to address the elephant in the room, which is me first, and then go from there. So there's a couple ways, as you were articulating it, I was thinking of a couple of ways to answer and which one would make me look less terrible. They're equal. Right. I would say I recognize the issue somewhere in my 30s, probably 35, between 35 and 37. I recognized that I had an issue. The challenge beyond that is that recognizing that I had this issue in my home, who and how I was or was not showing up for my family, I moved further away from addressing it and more into the areas of my life where I was actually being successful, air quotes, whatever you want to say. And my corporate experience, like I progressed pretty quick. And I saw in that part of my life, my actions were rewarded the way that I expected them to be rewarded. It was a very linear relationship. Right. If this, then that. Right. Whereas in the home, who you are to people who are changing as you are changing, if this, I'm not sure if that comes, right? And you have to make adjustments. And my frustration with things not working the way I wanted them to work in the home, I would take myself or spend less time in the home, spend more time where I thought I was finding my value. Right. And then I would justify it because the more effort I put into work, the more money we were able to bring in the house. And, we had the option for my wife to be at home, right? I didn't understand what that took, right? So for me, it was, I'm doing all of this. You only have to X, Y, Z.
Right.
And then there was resentment built because the way that I was playing down her role in my mind didn't lead to any, never disrespect like in a physical manner, but like appreciation is a better word.
Yeah.
All right. So, with my wife, if you appreciate her more, she thrives more. Like she needs that. Whereas me, I'm not that person. I don't necessarily need like write me a letter about appreciation, say thank you, but otherwise pay me.
Yeah.
At work, I'm, that was my thing. I used to tell people, like, my reward comes on every other week and in March when we get bonuses.
Right.
Other than that, don't touch me physically, don't impede me, you know, and we can get through it. But, I had a challenge of thinking that what worked at work worked at home. And when it didn't work at home, I just do more of it at work.
Wow.
So it wasn't until I would say 40, and I guess that may be a pivotal year for many people, especially men. I started to rethink some things. Like the opportunities that I had missed, time away. My family, we had the opportunity to go live overseas through my job. We lived in Dubai for 3 years and I wasn't present at all. Like I worked more there. And again, it was my justification was, I'm providing you guys this opportunity.
Yeah, this is an experience, something that you'd never get.
Yeah, which is true. Like, I like that it shaped my children are able to form a worldview from their experience, not from what they see or read or hear on TV. But I just started realizing around 40, like I'm not even here.
Right.
And, we had moved back. That's what brought us to Texas. After the Dubai stint, I was able to pick where I wanted to live. And Texas was one of the places that early in our marriage, it was Texas and Florida.
Okay.
And it just made sense because we had an office here. So things started to shift. I started to see the rewards of corporate outside of money weren't that rewarding.
Yeah.
And I got to the top of the ladder and it was leaning against the wrong building. So
that's a bar right there. You got to the top of the ladder and it was against the wrong building.
Very wrong building. So I had to start taking account. I found myself like apologizing to my children, like letting them know where I am in life, and kind of fast forward to the last couple of years. You said you were in your valley. I'm still in my valley, right? Yeah. Corporate was done with me October 3rd, 2022. I haven't had a corporate experience since.
Oh, wow.
Our lifestyle has adjusted, but this is the house we had at the time. This is the house we have now, and it's all God. And I don't know. And I realized that my vice, it's been sex, it's been alcohol, it's been a number of things.
Right.
But my biggest one is control. Not even in the loud sense of you must, you shall, rah, shaking my fist, but no, I can handle it. And that's how I lived my entire corporate existence, was thinking that I was handling it. Yeah. And like my parents say, God will blow on your money.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting that you say that, right? The strength is actually in the surrender, man.
Yeah. You're going to jump right to that, huh?
It's just the first thing that resonated with me, man, because I understand it, right? And even sometimes, when people read the scripture and they get this, let a man deny himself daily. And oftentimes they think it's the porn. Yeah. It's the alcohol. Sometimes it's you denying yourself to self-manage what you think you are and who you think you are, and allow God to say, you got this, God. Yeah. No mas. Yeah. I've been there, bro, where I think I got it all figured out. Well, I'm not big on like zodiac signs, but I know you're a Virgo. I'm Virgo. We perfectionists. We want things to go that way. We think we got it all figured out. And sometimes that is the biggest hindrance to us getting to where God wants us to go. Yeah. Because he's doing it, right? And so.
For me, why that was a problem, because it worked until it didn't work.
Right.
And it worked for a long time. So I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was working for a long time. And the longer you think it's you, the further you're getting away from being able to actually release that thing.
Yeah.
And when you have to, for me, it was almost like not angry at God. I was like embarrassed.
Right.
Like, man, especially having a family. Like I've been furloughed and laid off. Me and my dad worked at the same company. when I was going through college, while I was
Right.
working my way through college, and they terminated him 2 years short of retirement. So
Wow.
I saw
What happened?
what can happen. And then within that same company, I was furloughed. So I kind of knew that it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's working so long,
Yeah.
and you keep the upward mobility is there, the finances are increasing, only to find out your whole life is out of whack.
Yeah. And you're showing up as the best version of yourself for that particular space of your life. And you're neglecting the spaces that truly matter, right?
Yeah.
My children,
Yeah.
my marriage, like my relationship with God. Like I'm neglecting all that because I got my eye on this prize right here. And I'm doing it under the guise of I want to take care of my family. I want to give them a good life. I want them to be prepared for life. And sometimes we get so caught up in that, or I've gotten so caught up in that. I mean, I worked for Verizon for a while. And man, I was working at that particular time. We was in Irving, probably working 12, 13 hours a day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. And money was amazing.
Yeah.
But there was no interaction.
Detached.
There was no relationship building going on within the relationship with my children. And although I thought I was a good dad, you know what I'm saying? I provided, I tried to protect you. I tried to teach you. But as my kids got older and for me, it was a divorce from their mother that kind of, that's what broke it down.
Yeah.
And so having those discussions with them and them telling me how they experienced me versus how I thought they experienced me.
Yeah.
And that is a sobering moment. And it took me a minute to even acknowledge it. Right.
Yeah.
But just getting to that point where I say, you know what? You're right. I'm wrong. I thought I had it all figured out. And then to be able to go back to them and say, you know what? I did the best I could, not excusing my behavior, but I want to apologize to you.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you that I got it wrong.
Hearing your children tell you that you're distant in the most respectful tone as possible still hurts.
Oh, yeah.
Still hurts. And part of what I celebrate in that is that, thank God, they felt that they could have that conversation with me. So something is happening right. But for them to recognize that tells me that I'm not meeting their need consistently. And that no matter how much money you bring in, if you weren't there, you weren't there.
Right.
And you can try to rationalize it to them at whatever age as an adult, but not being there for a child, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
You weren't there.
Yeah. And one of the biggest lessons I learned, and like my process too, is, you know, people say, I love my children the same. You can't love your children the same. They're different individuals. I got twin boys that are identical.
Yeah.
And them Negroes can be they are the opposite.
Yeah.
So one, I can rah in your face and just, this is how it is. This is what needs to be done. And he can handle it.
Yeah.
The other one, I got to kind of navigate that situation and be very kind of tactful, because if not, he's going to automatically shut down.
Yeah.
And so now I sound like Charlie Brown's teacher to him. Wah, 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 wah.
Yep.
So even just in that learning process, right, just growing and maturing, it takes a lot, but it's really sobering to go through that and then realize, like, man, I was missing the mark the whole time.
Yeah. Because for me, I won't speak for you. All the while I'm telling myself that I'm hitting it.
Yeah.
And it looks like this.
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest aha moment for me was I was defining success all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So if you define a success in a way and you're meeting that, you're going to keep pursuing that because you believe the lie to yourself that this is successful, and everything else around success is the sacrifice for success, right? You hear that in everybody's story, from the millionaire to the billionaire. Some things have to be sacrificed, but as long as success is achieved, it's all worth it.
Right.
I think it's all worth it if you define success the right way.
Oh, yeah.
For me, that everything has to revolve around my family now.
Okay. So that's what was going to be my question. What does success look like to you?
Man, success to me looks like a healthy family that communicates, that loves being around each other, children that love being around their parent, children that feel free enough to bring things to me and not hide things. Having a life that that provides them opportunities, right? Even if they're not as big as I want them in certain phases of life, but allowing them to grow and pursue their passions and learn from my wins and my losses. I mean, that's kind of the ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, because and when you really think about it, every loss is not a loss. Yeah. We look at it as a loss, but oftentimes it's a gain because
expensive
gain. Yeah. Which I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in this maturation process for myself is everything begins in a spiritual realm, right?
So, yeah.
And so if we start looking at it from a spiritual realm and understanding that there's a bigger play in process, and not just what I see, and understanding, it's like God sees it all, right? He knows the beginning, the end, the middle. So he knows every nook and cranny, every turn I need to take. Yeah. So sometimes that thing that looks like a failure to me is honestly the thing that would deter me from getting further away from the goal, from where I'm supposed to go. So sometimes he has to throw that fork in the road. He has to throw that pothole where I have that blowout or that crash out, so it can stop me from going further down the road, right? And then think about this, and I don't even really want to get too much in this, but if we look at, what's going on with, one of the black icons, as they say, and everything that he's been through. And I think if he would have really had that true level of failure, a true pothole experience, maybe it could have stopped him from continuing down that path. And
push the line. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Push the line. One thing that I've been in my head about for the last year portion of this process is not that God had to sit me down or he had to adjust some things, but why did I push it that far that he had to adjust it? Like I maybe it's because of my upbringing, like being mad at God is foolish. I get it. I'm not going to say I never have been, but I can never sit there. Like, right. God, why did you? I just wasn't taught to be like that. Very accountable for my actions. For my consequences, initially, right? I wasn't always action oriented. But if there were consequences that I brought on, I could say this was me. It wasn't pointing at everybody else. Now, my goal is to be accountable in the moment for my actions.
Yeah.
To kind of, avoid some of these consequences.
That's the true definition of emotional intelligence, right? I call it spiritual intelligence. Is just being able to be self-aware, right? Acknowledge what you're going on. I got this framework that I'm working with, and I'm going to be using it, moving forward. And it's called AIM, right? Like you don't know the target that you're shooting at if you don't know what you're aiming at, and if your weapon or whatever you're using to get to that target is not adjusted for that target. Right. So the first piece of AIM is acknowledge. I have to acknowledge that this is my target. This is where I'm trying to go. Yeah. Now, are the things that I'm doing, am I doing it? And is it going to push me towards that place? Right. And then if I acknowledge that, then I can accept it. Okay, this is where I'm at in the process. This is where I go from here, right? Yeah. This is my plan. So it's acknowledge, accept, and then you action. And then after you acknowledge the thing, you accept the thing, then you put a game plan in place, an action in place. Then you start to implement that with intentionality. Right. Like every day I'm showing up to hit this target. I'm going to make sure I'm hitting this target. And then you, at the end of that, you measure your methods. Are the things that you're doing working? So that's your aim, right? And so I think sometimes the biggest piece is that acceptance and that acknowledgement of what's going on versus saying, I'm good.
Gotcha.
I'm all right.
That makes sense. Yeah. Definitely makes sense, man. I wasn't always, I think the scary part for me was that I didn't plan my success.
Oh, wow.
My work was consistent, and I saw where I could add value, and I would go in those places and spaces and add value. And I knew that worked, but I never had a ABC,
Mm-hmm.
I would have in my mind I want to be an executive by 40.
Mm-hmm.
But how exactly I was going to get there was literally me just keep saying it. I'm not saying that this is manifestation, because not
Right.
anything.
Right.
That's not something I subscribe to
Right.
in and of itself. But when it, like I said, it kept working. And then for me not to honor God in that process, because that was, in my opinion, the only way that happened like that.
Mm-hmm.
And to think that it was me, they say, make another hole. That's what God told me. If it's you, do it again, fool. I ain't got nothing.
No, we don't want you to be like Dane for the rest of your life.
No. But yeah, it's it's humbling, man. And I've never been a brash person or a look at me. And that's even something I'm learning on the podcast. Like I believe in what I do. I just had this aversion to selling people to look at me. Like,
Right.
look at what I'm doing. Look what I'm like, the self-celebratory stuff. And I know what I need to do is not necessarily that. But my point is I've never done it for people to say, ooh, ah.
Right. Right.
But it was still this feeling of control, this pride that when I hit a salary target, you wouldn't know on social media.
Right.
Number one, I wasn't really on social media then anyway. But even now, like, you wouldn't know. But it's the matters of the heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I proved that I couldn't be trusted with all of that.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't braggadocious about it.
Yeah, you had that what they call a humble brag.
I mean, but the thing, you would have to be very close to me, deep in conversation to even know what was happening with me. Because it wasn't like I was showing up with a new whip or anything like that. But I just, it doesn't matter what you buy.
Right.
If you're not managing whatever you get at whatever level,
right,
it doesn't work.
Yeah, I've heard people say whatever you don't manage properly, God will take from you.
I believe.
Whether that's a relationship, that's money, whatever it is that he's entrusted you with.
Yeah.
If the stewardship is off, then you're not going to keep that.
Yep.
I would say this though. I've heard this said actually by Pastor Darius Daniels, and I really
love that guy.
Subscribe to it. Yeah, he's dope, man. Are you being arrogant when you're giving the Creator credit for what you've done, like what He's placed in you, and you're building something, and you're saying God is giving me this vision for this platform, and I just follow the blueprint, and look where God has brought me. Look what God has done. Like look how God has multiplied that. That's not being arrogant. That's not being prideful. That's honestly giving the Creator His due for what He's done for you. The pride comes in us when we be like, man, yeah, I did this, man. I look at this podcast, man. And we popping in these streets, right? And that's the thing is, I had to ask God this one day. I was thinking, I said, God, do I really want to do the things that I believe that you placed in my spirit for your honor and glory, or do I really want it for me?
Yeah.
And I have to be careful with that, right? It's like, oh, I'm building this for God, but am I really building it for God? Am I building it to be able to pat myself on the back and say, look what I did?
Yeah.
And so that's something that I wrestle with as well, because I'm not really a me person.
Yeah.
But I do know that I'm here for a reason. People going through what I went through, getting shot at point blank range, liver laceration, bullet lodged close to the spine, still there. I can't get an MRI to this day because of that.
Ooh.
Because they're afraid that, that magnet will pull that bullet and it'll cause some internal damage that, can't be reversed. So it's like, I got to get to what God's telling me to do. I got to get to who God wants me to be. But then I got to walk that fine line to make sure that it's Him, not me.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, because I find myself talking myself out of His blessing. And the more that I get in the Word and try to understand it, like there's a big difference in my life now of actually reading the Word because I want to understand it and understand Him more,
right?
What He has for my life, than before being raised and remember this scripture. Remember this. There's a lot of read and regurgitate. So now understanding things and having context of life and how these things apply to me. That's honestly one of the things I'm working through, man. I'm not, because of my experience with success, there was a point where I thought I didn't want success anymore because I don't want to be like that again.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not that. Just manage it differently.
Right.
Manage it as he would have you manage it. Give him the glory and the honor. And so I guess I wasn't doing either. So while I wasn't bragging on me, I wasn't bragging on him.
Right.
So I guess either the sword is double edged in that sense.
All right. Well, so as you've like come to these realizations, and I'm sure you and your wife are having kind of these intimate discussions. How does that look for the family, like moving forward with the Dear Son podcast and all the amazing things you do?
Yeah.
How is it play into the success of the family? Because, Dear Son is definitely speaking into men's lives and speaking to families, speaking to manhood.
Yeah.
So how are these things that you're doing shaping, informing your household? Because oftentimes the things that we are putting out in the public via podcasts, via whatever, the devil, the enemy is going to really test you to see, are you about that life that you're talking about? So how does that, correlate?
Man, it's the one thing I love about this platform. Me saying I love about this platform is weird. It wasn't built on a highlight reel.
Wow.
So it was more so built on, here's where I bumped my head, here's what I learned, or here's where I bumped my head yesterday. I haven't learned my lesson yet.
Mm-hmm.
But you might not want to bump your head. It hurts.
Yeah.
I can tell you it hurts. I can't tell you what it's like to get through the hurt yet, but it hurts. So the scary part for me and the beautiful part for me is my family's watching.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look the same as it looked before. And I have to explain to them the changes of like our life used to look like this.
Mm-hmm.
Daddy cannot, yes. Daddy cannot, yes. Now it's more, now we have conversations about budget as a family. Here's what we can do. Here's what we can't do. What suggestions do you have? I think that's the biggest piece of it, is engaging my family in the family plan.
Well,
Before I had the money, I had the plan.
No.
We moving on, again, one of those ego things.
Mm-hmm.
We moving on my decisions because I'm responsible for the income. I'm responsible for the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Income starts with I and ends with me,
Mm.
which is foolish.
Wow.
It's true, right?
It's a bar. Come on now.
So it's now having the humility to say, I actually don't know what's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I think. Here's what I'm doing about it. What do you guys think? The other piece of it is when the money was flowing, and my justification was the money is flowing, is I would just give them things that I wanted them to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a post the other day that said sometimes giving our children the life that we wanted robs them of the life they deserve.
Right.
So it's because I thought I wanted these things as a child, I'm throwing all these things at my children. They're like, hey,
I want that.
can you just come to my recital?
Yeah.
Hey, I would really like to play soccer.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take me. Like it's those things that are the decision-making process now.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a family conversation. And interesting that you said me and my wife having a conversation. That's new. I actually podcast because of my wife. We started a podcast in 2018 that was an extension of our YouTube channel. So when we went overseas and my wife wasn't working, her thing became YouTube and vlogging, telling our life story. That's how I got into cameras. I was like, oh, I can buy a camera, I can buy the equipment. And you see where it landed.
Right.
It landed here. We started having conversations that weren't necessarily like family dynamic appropriate on our YouTube channel. It was more like, here's what really happens in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And having some of those conversations, some of them never came out.
Right.
Because it was the first time we were actually talking about a thing. And I realized that, man, I've been an excellent communicator outside of my home. I've chosen not to communicate in my home. Because I don't think it's really a dichotomy of you're one there and you're not the other here. It's a choice.
Yeah.
Because whatever skill set I had to develop to communicate with perfect strangers for my gain, I was just choosing not to do it in my house for the family gain. Man. So it was like those and again, that's around that 39, 40-year-old where I'm like, man, I don't even know my family, like talking about it. Love them, yes. Have I actually taken a deep enough interest in them to understand what moves them, what makes them tick? Like I said often that I entered marriage mimicking what I saw my dad do.
Yeah.
That was for my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't marry my mom.
Right.
that would be weird. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And my wife is very different than my mom. So I'm frustrated. Like, I'm doing these things that's supposed to work,
and they're not working.
but you don't respond like I saw the response. So we, that carried through the relationship for a long time. We had kids early.
Yeah.
It was instant family from jump. Child, space, child. Right? And this.
Right. So life is life.
Life is like, I was about to say, until the last couple of years, no, our life has been marked by life events, typically annually. Like, it's something. And to kind of to bring it back to what you asked about the family is like, I think the biggest change is we're moving as a family unit, not as a general and soldiers. Which I know there's still times where I have to step into the general. Like, you can't see the landmine, I can see it. But in everyday life, have well-spoken, well-educated children, logical. Sorry about that. They got that from me. Most of them, like, to a fault. But it's including them into the decision-making process. And now there's a sense of ownership of, this is our thing. So dad is doing this, but my son will come and he didn't come when we shot for you, but this led to other opportunities of me going to shoot for people.
Right.
So now my son will come with me to shoot. My youngest son is starting to look at it like, what are you interested in? It has changed the dynamic because they've seen me have to figure something out new and of interest. And that was the light bulb for me. It was like, oh, what are you interested in?
Right.
And how can I facilitate that? So I say there's way more conversation. There's a lot riding on this platform and its success, but the collateral benefit has been phenomenal for me and the maturation of our family.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. A couple of things that stood out with me that you said, and it's funny that you said that. I had a discussion with somebody about this as well. You talking about being a great communicator outside the house, because this is what you do for business, and you present, and you have to, cast vision and help your team to buy into that, and you're doing that at a high level. But then we walk into our homes and we are failing miserably. Yeah. And it's funny because I was thinking about something that thought came to me. It's like, God has blessed me with all these skills in corporate America, and I don't use them in my home, in my business, to my benefit. It's like you have the structure, the blueprint over here, and then you go home and you just are just flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's not like you said that we don't know those skills. It's that we don't choose to apply them in the instances, right? I'm a communicator, by choice or by trade, or, God has thrust me into a communicator, but why am I not able to communicate with my wife? Right? Why am I not able to communicate with my kid? And for me, that led back to like my leadership, right? I think a leader should be able, again, to cast a vision that people will buy into, and they'll be able to truly understand where you're going, how you're going to get there, and then follow that process. And again, I could do it with my sales team. I could do it with my reps, but I had a hard time applying those principles at the house. And that's wild to me. And it shows a arrogance on my part, you know what I mean? To think that I can just show up how I show up.
I never thought of it in that sense, but that's absolutely what it was for me.
Wow. Absolutely.
Because like when the other thing about this podcast is when my family will watch it, it was almost like, who is that?
I don't know that dude.
Not that he's on here lying.
Right.
Like who?
I don't see that side of him.
But my wife was like, I tell him, I said, kid, do I need to come on the show so you can talk to me? Like it was to that point because this was easy. It became easy for me to dump on here. Mm-hmm. And for so many years of having it figured out, and now that I don't have it figured out, mm-hmm. I was too embarrassed to talk to her.
Right.
Like what if she asked me a question about what's next? And I'm like, I don't know. She would rather know that I don't know and us figure it out than for me to hoard the responsibility of not knowing and us failing.
Right.
She only wanted to be included.
Yeah.
Ever.
Right.
It's rarely that I brought an idea to my wife and she was like, that's foolish.
Right.
Don't do it.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think if she said foolish, but we still did it. Like, but I believe in you enough to do it. But I overplayed my hand in terms of what a leader was. A leader facilitates, and I learned this in corporate, a leader facilitates the best outcome possible based on the resources that you have.
Right.
Sometimes that looks like me at the front of the mic. Sometimes that might look like my senior manager on the mic because he or she is more well-versed in this part of the presentation. It's not always the answer is me.
Yeah, exactly. You know, as a leader, what they say, we should be able to influence others, inspire them. We should be able to set direction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then allow them to lead.
Yeah.
Take their skills and say, okay, this is a good fit for you as you know, the leader, you know, my helpmate, my partner, whatever you want to call it. And so you're better at this space.
Yeah.
So let me relinquish control of this and kind of us come together and be able to talk it out and figure out how we get there collectively. And I think sometimes, you know, like you said, it's easier to kind of talk to the podcast, the mic, your guests, and just kind of let it free, let it hang out. Because in most cases, there's probably not going to be much feedback or blowback from talking to that person.
Yeah. And they don't know me well enough to call me on.
Right.
You know, sometimes it can happen, but again, I've never used this as a follow me because I'm an expert. I'm not the renowned expert. I'm a relatable example.
Yeah, and I'm just telling you my story from my lens, right? And if it connects with you, and you know, hopefully you learn, you learn something from me, right? Yeah. And that's typically what it's about, is just trying to set the positive example, tell your story, hopefully help somebody else not go in that pothole, miss that pothole, right? And it's funny, even from a leadership perspective, we can lead from a positive space or we can lead from a negative space. And we've all seen how it looks with bad leaders. We got one. Never mind. I'm not even going to go there.
Several stories.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you this. I know we're getting ready to probably wrap this up. So out of all this we've talked about and all that you've learned in the process and all the lessons that you learned, what would you say to the man that is the third at that crossroad or that precipice of where you were at when you start to have that? Or even if they're a couple years behind that and they see themselves in some of the things that you say, they see that they have those traits, what would you tell them to do in order to start the transformation process and to become a better man for their family, a better man for themselves, a better man for them children, and not make the same mistakes that you and I make?
I would tell them to really evaluate their why. And I know the knee-jerk response is for a guy that has a family, a guy that's married, is I do it for my family. And while that is honorable, we do a lot for our family. What I learned is that my why had to be internal first. Like I need to be the best version of me, and everything around me gets the collateral benefit of the best version of me. If I'm blaming my family for the cost of my success, I'll have success in that thing, but I won't have my family. And the longer that goes, the wider that gap gets between you and reconnecting with your family. So if I am the best version of me, that considers everything. That considers how I respond to people. That considers how I prioritize. That considers my health. That considers my finances. Naturally, the decisions that you make, the people that you impact around you are going to get a better experience of you with that. What I would caution them to as well is don't lean into the thing that is working the best in your life and double down on that, neglecting the other things. There's never going to be a justification, if you're honest with yourself, for the pursuit of what you're calling success at the expense of your family to your family. Right. One thing that I learned when I went overseas is that something that I posted, I said, never trade your family for money.
Right.
Most people, I would never do that.
Right.
Every day you do it. Most of us.
Yeah.
Right. And I get that there's there is some time trade-off for money. And I'm not trying to get into the philosophy of entrepreneurship and passive. I had to come to grips with myself that I made a decision to leave my family and go to Iraq for a year to make some money.
Right.
And I said it was because of my family.
Right.
It was because of my ego. My ego led me to decisions that put us in financial distress. And that looked like a way to get us out of it. So I got us out of financial distress. But when I left, my oldest son was turning 1 the week that I left.
Wow.
So I would go to Iraq for 4 or 5 months, come home for 2 weeks. My son recognized who I am on day number 12. Day 15, I'm out. Right.
Right.
But they had Jordans, and Christmas was cool. And some might say, well, they were so young. They were young, but my wife would tell me stories of when planes would fly over, they say, is that dad?
Wow.
Is my dad on that plane? Because that was my mode of transportation. I'm going way far, and it's going to take me a long time to get back. So be mindful of what you're blaming your family for. And I'm saying that in a specific way because sometimes calling them that why is an excuse for us to do something that we really want to do that they haven't really. My family didn't buy into my version of success. They got some things from it, but if the conversations that I have with my children now, and I'm learning stuff that happened, like, yeah, for real. When you were 12, that's not cool.
Right.
No matter what the house size or none of that matters.
Yep.
If they realize that you've chosen something that is more important to you than they are to you. And that duplicates. I have sons and daughters. I got 3 daughters, 2 sons. So I'm teaching my daughters what a man looks like and what to accept from a man. Not a priority. Put you aside for money. I'm teaching my son that chase the money. Like your family will figure it out. Just provide the money.
As long as you give them the things that they want.
Yeah. Figure out your why and really give some time and thought to do your actions accurately reflect that why? And if it does, I think you're on the path, or maybe you need different help that I can't provide.
Right.
If it doesn't, you got some things to kind of work on. So
right. And of course we are not experts. Like you said, we're just relating and sharing our stories. You find a space, you find some mentors, you find some people that look like where you want to go in life. And then you do the research to figure out if that truly is where you want to be, right? Because sometimes the thing from the outside looks way better than it is on the inside.
Absolutely.
So do that research. Man, first of all, thank you for sharing, man. This has been a powerful conversation in my mindset. We've talked about, where they can find you, what you do. Tell them a little bit about, where they can find you, D. Johns, and then and some of the other things. I don't want to put your business out there because maybe you don't want it out there, but tell people what you want them to know in closing. All
right, I'm getting better at this. So on IG, the Dear Son Podcast, all one word, the Dear Son Podcast. You'll find me posting clips there every day. On Facebook, it's the same, or my actual government name, Derek Johns, DEREK JOHNS. I probably have way more activity on Facebook there, but it's posting things related to Dear Son. On TikTok, I am podcast_pops. Podcast_pops. And I'm actually starting to enjoy that community, man. TikTok is letting the content fly.
Okay.
Letting people see it, letting people engage. So you'll find probably a little bit more of my personality there because the conversations flow a lot better on TikTok. If you're interested in what I do, you can go to the dearsonpodcast.com. That's kind of the hub for everything connected. I'm working on some documentaries. So we met through Philip inviting you onto the podcast that we did together.
Yep.
We did another project after that looking at mental health in the Black community a couple of years ago. That's up and circulating now. It's being shopped, and hopefully that'll get picked up by a couple of platforms.
Nice.
And I'll definitely provide more details once that happens. But that's the space I really want to live in. Like my tagline is, my production tagline is telling beautiful Black stories responsibly. And I know that there's billions of those to tell, so I'll never run out. So,
Well, first of all, thank you for taking this time and coming sit on my podcast with me. I consider you to be one of the podcast gurus, right?
Scare.
Man, you're a wealth of knowledge, man. And, I speak and I affirm you for the level of excellence that you put out into the atmosphere, the good content that you put out as well, right? Telling a positive story, and showing the good and the bad, the ugly of who you are, where you've been, with your son, right? Because that takes a lot to put yourself out there, because you got a rack of bots sitting somewhere ready to attack you, or you got some dude sitting in his mama's basement, with a t-shirt and a bag of chips and a soda, trying to tear you down.
Yeah.
So people don't realize for you to just step out and tell your story and be authentically yourself, how powerful that is. But I want to affirm you, man, that you are doing it powerfully, man. And I see bigger, better platforms for you, man. I see Dear Son podcast and the whole conglomerate blowing up, where you have several streams coming from that, man. And I'm looking forward to be like, man, I know that dude, man. And the dude helped me out at one point in time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So as we close, man, I just want you, the listeners, right? If anything that you heard today hit home, whether emotionally, whether spiritually, talking about leadership, talking about surrender, talking about leading the family, talking about success, right? I want you to take this time to reflect upon yourself and what does success really look like to you, right? Success to me at one time, like you said, looked like me making a 6-7 figures, being able to do anything that I wanted when I wanted to do it. But it also wasn't neglecting my responsibilities as a dad, as a husband, as a friend, because I'm providing this, right? And I know it's more than me just providing. It's also me providing emotional, mental, physical support. So, success to me now looks like obeying God, because if I obey God, I'm going to take care of everything inside of that. So, this is not about us being perfect. We don't have it all figured out. I'm subject to make a mistake tomorrow. I often say I got 1 foot on grace and 1 foot on a banana peel that's close to a mistake. Absolutely. And if I'm not careful, it depends. That's how I'm gonna fall. So I just challenge each and every one of you that watch this episode to, one, reflect inward, look at yourself, and take stock of all these self-inflicted wounds that you have. I think oftentimes what I've learned about myself is about 90% of my wounds and my scars are self-inflicted, because I was playing with the weapon off safety and God told me to leave it on safety, and I still play with it. And then I end up shooting myself and I'm mad. I'm like, God, why you let the weapon shoot me? Well, I told you to put it on safety. You made the choice to play with the weapon. Now you got to deal with the repercussions. And so we got to understand that there's consequences to our actions. And even though God can fix it and he can soften the blow, there's still going to be some blowback from that. Like I'm dealing with carnage from my 20s that I still need to fix, right? And I'm trying to get it right. And I'm trying to become a better man, trying to be a better person. But there's still some people I need to talk to, still some relationships I need to repair, and still some forgiveness of self that needs to happen.
It's a big one.
So, take the time to do that work and deal with your traumas, because if you don't deal with your trauma ends up dealing with you. And it usually happens at the most inopportune time, when you think things are going the right way and you're getting ready to get to the next level in life, or a door is getting ready to open, and here comes trauma to slap you in your face and set you back. So, we appreciate you taking the time to listen today. I appreciate you, D. Johns, for joining and shooting and producing. He's a one-stop shop. You know what I'm saying? And you see the quality. The quality is A1. So as we close this out, I just would ask, if this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. If this resonates with you, share it. If this resonates with you, comment. And in closing, I want to dedicate this episode to a good brother of mine from the military and his wife, Stephanie and James Conway. They lost their son yesterday. Don't want to go into particulars about it, but I'm praying for your comfort, for your peace. This episode is dedicated to AJ Conway. Hey, we love you, fam, and we rocking with you, and we always only a phone call away. So Take the time to love on those that are close to you, because you never know when you won't have the opportunity to do it. This has been the Genesis, the Renaissance of Manhood podcast, where we're taking you back to the beginning. As you see, it says Genesis 1:28. Every day, we want you to be fruitful. We want you to multiply. We want you to subdue yourself, and we want you to have dominion over yourself. Lead yourself. It's your boy CY, Mr. 8020, and I'm gone.